I insisted him for giving a talk when I met him during the examinership of MPharm students, and he said, okay. So today's webinar is on modified excipients, adding functionality to excipients. Dr. Samit Padde is an academician turned industry expert, and he is working on area of modified excipients, which is the need of the hour. In pharmaceutical formulations, particularly in new research and products thereof, modified excipients are playing key role, and hence knowledge and updation of this area is very important. With this, I will introduce college in brief. Founded by Professor Javed Khan in 2004. This college is reaching excellence with support from the management and dedicated staff. I myself is associated with this college since 2010. Since then, the college is progressing vertically. Our president and general secretary and other members of the trust are keenly involved in the development of the college through their various activities. The college is approved by AICTE and received 5 years approval from Pharmacy Council of India. Since last many years, all the courses, B.Pharm as well as 3 M.Pharm courses have been running with full intake, which is otherwise a difficult task. Apart from all full admissions, the college has received 100 intake over 60 since 2020. So this is the second year running for 100 batch. We have a well-equipped instrumentation facilities and also an animal house facility which has received 5 years of approval from Central Government Agency CPCSEA. It gives me great pleasure to share with you that since last few years, all the 3 branches of MPharm is getting 100% results in university exam. I'm happy to share with you that out of 388 students admitted in the last academic year 2021, 194, more than 50% are receiving scholarships under various rates. The teaching OCP comprises of total of 13 doctorate teachers, which is also a rare case in University of Mumbai Pharmacy Colleges, and 1 postdoctorate faculty out of 21 faculties. Faculties are university approved, and the college maintains the required cadre ratio as per AICTE, that is professor, associate professor and assistant professor, which is again a very difficult task. The college is now a center for doctoral studies in pharmaceutics and guides 15 students in pharmaceutics branch, 15 in quality assurance and 10 in pharmacology branch. Currently, the college is involved in university projects and industry consultancy projects. I also work on patents. 2 are in the process of registration. College has received funding of 12.5 lakhs for instrument purchase through CSR funds from Lubrizol India Limited in the year 2019-20. Our faculty is working on 5 university funded projects. We have on our credit 28 plus national and international publications in this academic year. Faculties are also involved in authoring books for students based on their academic curriculum. Since last 4 to 5 years, our students are securing university topper positions in different streams of MPharm and BPharm level. This year, 2 of our MPharm pharmacology students received first and second position in the university semester 1 university exam. We have a very strong placement cell. The cell has organized a 9 days skill development program for our final year BPharm and MPharm students in collaboration with Rubicon Research Private Limited. I am happy to share with you that 2020-21 batch has got placement 28 out of 32 students who have applied for placement. And for M.Pharm, 28 out of 40 students have got the job without completion of even M.Pharm. This college also constitutes an entrepreneurship cell which organizes series of lectures on career guidance and entrepreneurship development. The senior and experienced faculties at the college conducts free of cost GPAT classes for their students. Our students are all-rounder, and apart from the excellence shown by our students in academics, they do indulge in extracurricular activities and excel even on that front. So with this short brief of our college, I will request Kanishka madam to go ahead with the activities. Yes.
Thank you so much, Principal Ma'am. Now I request Pradnya Palekar Shanbak Ma'am to introduce our speaker for the day and also to give a glimpse of today's webinar. Over to you, Pradnya Ma'am.
Thank you, madam. Good afternoon. On behalf of Department of Pharmaceutics, Oriental College of Pharmacy, I welcome you all to the webinar on modified excipients, adding functionality to excipients by Dr. Sameer Pathé. Let me introduce you all to the speaker for today. Dr. Sameer Pathé is the Deputy Manager, Technical Services at Arihant. Dr. Pathé has completed his doctoral studies in pharmaceutics from Bombay College of Pharmacy under the mentorship of Dr. Mangal Nagarsekar Madam. Dr. Pathé has more than 9 years of post-PhD experience in academia and industry. He has worked with Cipla, IPCA, USV, and was also associated with VS College of Pharmacy as a faculty. His job responsibilities at Arihant Innochem includes technical promotion of products in industry and academia, identifying newer applications for excipients, devising studies for newer application data for excipients, liaising with CRO academia for conducting application studies for excipients. His research interests include modified release dosage forms such as solid orals as well as parenteral systems, lipid-based drug delivery systems like liposomes and nanocarriers. Let me brief you about the webinar. Development of any new excipient and its evaluation is a costly procedure, whereas modification of existing excipients is very simple, more economical, and less time-consuming. Designing a novel drug delivery system leads to the need for new excipients with varied properties. Development of excipients which are capable of fulfilling multifunctional roles, such as enhancing drug bioavailability, drug stability, as well as controlling the drug release according to the therapeutic need, is one of the most important prerequisites for further progress in the design of novel drug delivery systems. The main focus of the webinar is on modified novel excipients that perform multiple functions in pharmaceutical formulations. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Sameer Pathé for accepting our invitation and taking out time to share his valuable insights with all of us today. I now request Dr. Pathé to start with his presentation by sharing his screen. Thank you
all. Thank you very much, Pradnya Madam, for kind introduction. At this outset, first of all, I would like to thank OCP for providing a platform for interacting with students, because it has always been my passion to interact with students right from my days when I was working with VS College. So it is indeed a comeback for me when I actually start to interact with students. Thank you, Sudha Madam, for giving me this opportunity, and thank you, Pradnya Madam, for the nice introduction. So today, to begin with, happy World Pharmacist Day to everyone. Today being the World Pharmacist Day, we would like to congratulate each one of us for being the pillars of very important pillars of the healthcare system in not only in India but all over the world. And so this day is actually to remember our vital role in the healthcare system. And I would also like to encourage our B.Pharm students who are looking up to this career, that you have a very bright future ahead with respect to pharmacy as a career. With this, I would like to share my screen. Just a moment. Okay. So I would just like to stop my video over here so that we can have good internet quality for the presentation. So today's talk is on modified excipients, adding functionality to the excipients. Just give me a moment. Okay, thank you. Now, before I begin, few points to remember. First of all, this talk is prepared keeping in view that many of the participants are BPharm students. Nonetheless, if you find that there are certain things which you have not understood, we can discuss over it again. The views presented in the talk are my own views and my own outlook towards the subject area, and bear no binding on our on the company Arihant Innochem as such. And thirdly, the most important part is no section of the presentation can be reproduced without the prior intimation to our company, to me, because many of the slides you will find certain information which we would not like to disclose as such without prior information to our principals as well. Coming to the contents of the presentation, a brief introduction on the excipients, the role of excipients, and certain points to remember when you're selecting an excipient. This would be important both for students who are beginning with their research work as well as to BPharm students who are just beginning to understand what excipients are really and what are their roles. New excipients, what are the needs for having new excipients? What are the challenges faced in the development of new excipients? Something more in detail about modified excipients, improving the excipient functionality. What do you mean by functionality of an excipient? And co-processed excipients, their method of preparation, and one or two examples which we will come across in this presentation. That is what I would be speaking on today. So to begin with, as we do it conventionally, right from the word excipient. What do you mean by excipient? It is derived from the Latin word excipiere, which means except, or which simply means other than. So whenever you're preparing a dosage form, you have a drug, or we call it as an API, the active pharmaceutical ingredient, which you mix along with an excipient and you get a dosage form. There are various reasons as why you go for dosage form. One of the major reasons is, two of the major reasons being, one, to give a correct dose, and second is patient compliance, which are the major two major reasons as to why you go for dosage form. There are several other ones. Now, how do you get the dosage form? You have the drug to which you have add the excipient. So anything other than the drug is called as the excipient. Now, this concept of excipient as being an inert material which is added just to get the dosage form was prevalent for quite some time. However, in the recent years, there has been a thorough study of the different excipient properties, the interaction of excipients with the drug, interaction of excipients with the body fluids, the role of excipient in enhancing the dosage form. All these studies have been carried out throughout these period of say 30, 40, 50 years. And the recent excipient definition says that pharmaceutical excipients are substances other than the active pharmaceutical ingredient that have been appropriately evaluated for safety. One of the important parameters that whatever goes in the body should be safe to administer, and are intentionally included in the drug delivery system. So there is a specific intention. That means there is a specific requirement, there's a specific need for including a particular excipient in the dosage form. So that goes in your current definition of what are excipients. So during this long during a substantial development in the excipient in the excipients in the recent era, you have an advanced role of excipients, as they are now perceived as not inert ingredients but as functional ingredients. Ingredients would add certain functionality to the dosage to the dosage form. And what are the different functionalities that we look at? Well, most of you are aware of what are the different excipients type. Okay, these are called as the functionalities. So you can have your excipients which act as fillers. The other word which you commonly associate with is diluent. So you would have excipients which are diluents, excipients which are binders, disintegrants, glidants, lubricants. All these are required for your tablets. You have anti-adherents, you have colorants, coating ingredients. Then modified release tablets, you have your modified release or sustained release matrix forming agent, which would delay the release of a drug from the dosage form. Typically when you have once a day or twice a day tablet, so you may make use of such ingredients. All these, if you see, all these are ingredients for solid orals. Then you have bases, spreading weighting agents, emulsifying agents, suspending agents, preservatives, flavors, sweeteners, antioxidants, buffering agent, vehicle, solubilizers. These would typically constitute your liquids and the topicals. And you have the stabilizing agents, cryoprotectants, tonicity agents, drug carriers, targeting agents, stimuli sensitive polymers for the more advanced type of systems. You have the parenterals, or you have the carrier based systems such as liposomes or nanoparticles. So you have a completely different set of excipients for these kind of systems. So overall, you see there are more than 1,000 plus excipients in which we get to utilize. So that a huge quantity of excipients that we actually have. One important point which I would like to make over here, especially for the students, that whenever you are using any excipient, you should know what you are using. You know your excipient. What you want to know about your excipient, that you have one excipient, different manufacturers. So you have excipients which are, you have a same excipient but different sources. So you have different companies who are manufacturing the same excipient. So you have different sources from where you can get an excipient. One brand, different grades. So you have one excipient from one of the companies, you have one brand, you have different grades of the same excipient. That is the thing which you also have to remember. We'll get to know by this one example. Say one of the most common excipient which is used as HPMC, that is hydroxypropyl methylcellulose, also known as hypromilose. This is a cellulose derivative which is a hydrophilic polymer. So it is hydroxypropyl and methyl derivative of cellulose. The major applications being that because it's an hydrophilic polymer, you can use it as a binder for tablets. You can use it for coating, film coating. You can use it as a sustained release matrix forming agent, as a viscosity modifier, as a suspending agent, as a film forming agent for your orally disintegrating films or as a mucoadhesive agent. So HPMC, Ipromellose, you have different brands provided by different companies. So you have Metocell as a brand from DuPont. You have Metallose as the brand from Shin-Etsu. You have Benecel as a brand from Ashland. So same compound, different brands. So when you're using HPMC, you should be aware what is the source of the HPMC, which company is providing it. And of course, you have, apart from these companies, you have a lot of other companies which would give you the same excipient Hypromellose. If I select one brand out of it, say Metallose, look at the different choices in the Metallose itself that I have. Out of the different ones, I have selected few for explaining the difference between what you mean by grade. So Metallose, you have 60 SH 400, you have 65 SH 400, you have 90 SH 400, 90 SH 400 SR, you have 90 SH 15,000 SR. So what is different in all these? All are Hypromellose, all are basically hydroxypropyl methyl cellulose. What is different in is the chemistry. So there would be some differences in the hydroxypropoxy and the methyl content. So you have the three different grades, 60, 65, and 90, where actually you have the difference in the hydroxypropyl and the methyl content. The SH stands for Shin-Etsu Hypromellose. 400 stands for the viscosity. So you have a different viscosity of the same type of Hypromellose. Say you have 90, you have 400, you have from 90, you have 15,000. And then you have a difference in, again, 400, this is 400 SR. So again, there is a different brand in it. So what is different? From 400 to 15,000, there's difference in the viscosity. Basically, there's a difference in the polymer chain length. From 400 and 400 SR, you have a difference in the particle size. So you have again, you have differences in particle size, you have differences in the viscosity, you have differences in the chemistry itself, being responsible for these different grades of HPMC. Now, students will have to be careful while selecting these grades. Why? Because as I had mentioned earlier, HPMC performs different functions. For different functions, you actually have different grades being used. Say, for example, the SR stands for sustained release. So if you want to have a sustained release tablet, you would go for the SR grade. 15,000 SR would give you a more sustained action as compared to 400 SR. The 60 SH is more suitable for ophthalmic applications. 65 SH is more preferred for as a binder. So depending upon the grades, the applications differ. So when you're selecting any grade, you have to also be aware of what the grade that you're selecting, what is your application for which you're selecting a particular grade. So that was a brief about introducing the excipients to students and some knowledge about what you have to keep in your mind when you are going for a particular excipient. This is true with all the different types of excipients. You may find that for some excipient you have just a single grade, whereas for some excipients you have multiple grades. So be it HPMC, be it Utrajets, be it your simple microcrystalline cellulose, for NDDS, be it your PLJ polymers, be it your phospholipids, you do have different grades in all these excipients, and you have to be thorough when you're selecting each of the grade. You have to understand why you're selecting a particular grade, what are the physicochemical properties of the grade, what are the implications in using a particular grade of the excipient. Coming to the pharmaceutical excipient industry itself, it's a huge industry. The excipient market is projected to reach around USD 9.7 billion by the year 2025 from 6.9 billion in 2019, with a growth rate of about 5.8%, which is a very excellent growth. The largest share of the excipient market is obviously oral formulations, because oral formulations, that too solid orals, are the most convenient formulations, having the most of the patient compliance. So you would always prefer a tablet over a liquid or over an injection. So that's how it goes. So largest share of the excipients is those excipients which are used for oral formulations. Out of these also, major of the excipient share is by the binders. What are the attributes for increasing excipient market? What is the driving force way for the growth in the excipient market? Well, the excipient market is growing because the pharma industry itself is growing. You see, there are numerous products which are coming in the market. There are you have different routes of administration which are being explored. Typically, we used to have majority of the oral formulations. Nowadays, you have many nasal formulations, different types of ophthalmic formulations. You have novel drug delivery systems which are coming into the market. So there's an overall growth in the pharma industry, which is actually acting as a driving force for getting new excipients in the market. Secondly, increase in biopharmaceuticals. In the last few years, we see that there is a lot of increase in biopharmaceuticals, be it proteins, be it peptides, be it your interferons or the monoclonal antibodies for treatments. The treatment options have become different. They are much more advanced. These biopharmaceuticals require a different set of excipients. So increasing the biopharmaceuticals have also led to increase in the need for the excipients. So you see a growth in the market. There's a shift of the manufacturing focus towards the emerging market. Now, India is a hub for generic market. You have India lies about it's a eighth in the world for as a generic market, and you have India exporting to the US, to the African countries, and there is a shift in the manufacturing towards the emerging market, which was not there previously. So you have a lot of formulations coming up in the newer markets, which has also led to the increase in the need for the excipients. And finally, the arrival of functional excipients. When you are having a new set of excipients coming into the market, you always see an increase in their demand, again, which acts as a driving force for getting newer excipients and improving the excipient market overall. What is the need for new excipient? Why don't we go on with the older ones? We have a lot of excipients. Why don't we just continue using them? Is there a need? Yes, there is a need for new excipient. Why there is a need for new excipients? We will see that. First, there are some unmet manufacturing requirements. What are the unmet manufacturing requirements? Tableting issues. When you're manufacturing tablets on larger scale, you see many tableting issues which are very common, such as you have picking, sticking, you have non-uniformity, you have weight variation, you have poor flow, you have capping of the tablets. All these are tableting issues which even now many companies are facing during manufacturing. So you need excipients wherein you can if you use those excipients, you can minimize or reduce or totally rule off all these tableting issues. There are many technological advances which have happened in the recent years for which you need new excipients. Now, what are these technological advances? This would be high-speed tableting. We have got machines which can operate at very high speeds. So an advancement in the engineering, you can punch tablet at much more higher speeds. More the speed, lesser would be the dwell time of the blend in each of the tablet station, meaning you would tend to get capping issues. To resolve those, you would require newer excipients. You have processes such as continuous manufacturing which are becoming more and more important. So you have hot melt extrusion as one of the most popular emerging manufacturing process. There are very few polymers actually which can be melted at a very high temperature and yet remain stable. So you need excipients for that. You have another technology which is picking up, that is 3D printing. So you need excipients for 3D printing. The other unmet need would be the delivery issues, drug delivery issues. So you need more and more excipients which would be helpful for targeted drug delivery, for temporal targeting of the drugs. So for long-acting parenteral systems, for solubilizers, your stabilizers, you have them, but they're still lesser in number. And if you have a newer excipient, it will always benefit for addressing all the drug delivery issues, especially for the complex drug delivery systems. And last but not the least, to address patient compliance. For ease of swallowing, for pleasant taste, you would prefer to have excipients which would address to, quick, fast disintegration, which you would have flavors which would mask the taste more efficiently than what you have presently in the market. One more concept which is developing for the nutraceuticals is organic ingredients. Many of the nutraceuticals claim to be totally organic in nature, meaning the ingredients don't use any synthetic process. But the excipients are manufactured by from synthetic process. So there's a set of excipients which are being developed, which are organic in nature, which are derived from natural source without using much of the synthetic means. So you see, there is a need for because of all these different needs there's a need for a new excipient. So from where these new excipients can come? One, the new excipient is a totally new chemical entity. You have a different class, you have a different chemical altogether being used. This is one of the most important one of a new excipient, because this would have altogether a different role. It would have an important functionality. So it would be a very, very, very important development for the excipients. Having said that, a new excipient, developing a totally new chemical entity is a very time-consuming process, and it is also considered as an NCE, as you consider as an API, as a drug. So there's a lot of reluctance from the pharmaceutical industry, also because of the in-depth regulatory documentation that is required when you have a new chemical entity as an excipient. So you need to have the toxicological data, you need to have the safety data. All this is a very time-consuming process. So many excipient companies are reluctant in bringing in new excipients. On the other hand, the manufacturers are also not very keen to take up a completely new excipient, because if not much data is available, then they will have to do studies with respect to the toxicological and evaluating the safety of the excipient, which many of them will not be very happy doing it. What would be the other alternative? The other alternative is to modify the existing excipient. So I'm having say a microcrystalline cellulose, to modify it in some way so as to improve its nature, add a functionality to the existing excipient. So you have the modified excipient. Then you have something called as the co-processed excipient, wherein you have two or more excipients you processed together. Again, you get a new functionality out of the excipient. What are you doing over here when you are having a modified or a co-processed excipient is basically you're converting an existing excipient into a multifunctional one, adding a new functionality to the excipient. So when we say adding a new functionality, what do you mean by the term a multifunction excipient? They are the pre-processed and the co-processed excipients that would provide functionalities to the formulation, that would add functionalities to the formulation. One more point which is worth mentioning here is repurposing of excipient. That is finding new application of the existing excipient. We will not discuss it further over here due to shortage of time, but it's also an important way to have a new excipient to add functionality to an excipient. One example of a multifunctional excipient over here is a carbopol. We all know what carbopol is. It's basically a cross-linked polyacrylic acid. That's the structure of carbopol. It is known as carbomer, and this is a structure of carbomer homopolymer. It's offered by the company Lubrizol. So basically, that's the polyacrylic acid chain, and these are the cross links which you see over here. Carbopol is one of the most versatile polymer having many functions. So you call it as basically a multifunctional polymer. So initially carbopol was introduced for topical applications. So you have it's a gelling agent. It's a very good gelling agent. So you have it as a gelling agent. It increases the viscosity. So you use it for lotions, for suspensions. It goes in the ophthalmic formulation, the rectal and the vaginal systems. So all these are your topical applications. But we also now see that there are a lot of oral applications of carbopol as well. It was being used in the oral and oral care systems for toothpaste, mouthwashes, dental fixtures, orthodontics. It has been used in commercial toothpaste as well. But what we see nowadays is increasing use in tablets and capsule and oral suspensions, increasing use as a sustained release matrix agent. It's used as a solubility enhancer as well. You can also use it as a taste masking agent. So one polymer, again, many uses, we call it as a multifunctional polymer. Why is it a multifunctional polymer? It is because it is having different grades. So just quick look at what are these different grades. We will come to know that where we are getting into. So the earlier polymers of carbopol, they are not featured over here at all, were made from a different made by different process. So they had a different solvent which was used to make carbopol. Now the carbopol which is there in the market, you have these grades, you can see over here, which are having co-solvent as a residual solvent. All these are the topical grades. You change the method of synthesizing it by using a different solvent, you get the oral grades. All these are homopolymers in nature, meaning you have just plain acrylic acid. You change the polymer nature, you add one more ingredient to it, you get interpolymers. You have ultrase and ETD. Now ultrase and ETD are easy to disperse polymers. When you have carbopol, you need to disperse the carbopol by stirring. Here obviously you need to neutralize it for it to gel. In case of ultrase and ETD, you just disperse it in water and you just see that you get a very good dispersion. So no need for extensive stirring. Then you have copolymer blend of carbopol with one more alkyl agents, and you have another functionality added to it. These are the pemulin polymers, which are having emulsifying properties. So one more addition over here. You see the 71G and 71P. 71G is the granular grade, so it has been modified to a different particle size so that it can be used in direct compression. So what I'm mentioning over here is lot of modifications in the polymer which you see. They would be either chemical modifications or physical modification so that you can have multiple roles of a same polymer. This recently, in this year itself, Lubrizol announced a totally new grade of carbopol polymer known as Apinovex, which is used as a solubility enhancer. Coming to the modified excipients, they are chemically similar to the existing ones, but they differ with respect to the certain properties, such as the physical properties. They would differ with respect to particle size, morphology, density, moisture content, or impurity content. The advantage of using modified excipients is the toxicological and safety profile is well established. So when I am already using carbopol 971P, When I shifted to 71G, the only change over there is from the change in the particle size. So the chemically, the polymer is the same. So you have, so the toxicological and safety profile are very well established. So you can directly start using the 71G grade without bothering much about the regulatory issues. So all these modified excipients are very well accepted by the formulators, and they are high demand for specific applications. How do you get these modified excipients? Mainly by a granulation method or by spray drying techniques. We'll come to these techniques soon. One more example of modified excipient which I would like to give over here is microcrystalline cellulose. So you have microcrystalline cellulose pH 101, which is a versatile ingredient itself, which acts as a filler, binder, disintegrant. Can improve the properties of microcrystalline cellulose by modifying some of the features of the microcrystalline polymer itself. So you have two basic grades, the Kg and the UF grades from Asahi Kasei. The name of the brand of the MCC is Ceolus. So you have Ceolus Kg, which are long fibers. You have the Ceolus UF, which are round porous fibers with round porous particles. Both of these are having specific applications. They resolve tableting issues, they used in high-speed tableting, they improve the dissolution profile, and you can have drug adsorption when you have the porous particles. So till now, whatever I was talking about modifying a single excipient, that itself adds a functionality to the excipient. A more advanced version is when you have two excipients which are used in conjunction. That is what you call it as a co-processed excipient. So what's a co-processed excipient? Is a combination of two or more compendial, non-compendial excipient. Compendial or non-compendial meaning a excipient which is in one of the pharmacopoeia or non-pharmacopoeial, designed to physically modify their properties in a manner not achievable by simple physical mixing. So it is not just mixing of two excipients. You should get a synergy when you are processing it. So physically modifying the property which is not achievable by physical mixing and without involving any chemical change. So when you have a chemical change, you have a NCE, you have a different excipient altogether. So the criteria for a co-process excipient is the two excipients, which are two or more excipients which are processed in such a way that it is only a physical interaction which is not possible by simple mixing, and there is no chemical change. If these criteria are fulfilled, then you have a new excipient which is a co-process excipient that has minimal regulatory challenges. What is the need for a co-process excipient? These co-process excipients are manufactured with a view that you reduce the total number of excipient required for manufacturing of solid orals. Basically, all these co-process excipients are focused on their use in solid oral formulations, typically in tableting, because when you prepare tablets, you require a binder, you require a lubricant, you require a disintegrant. If you have also addressing the manufacturing issues, poor flow properties, getting hard tablets, weight variation. So to address all these issues, you would want to have a mix, or you would have to have a co-processed excipient combining two or more excipients which would act in a synergistic manner. What are the advantages of co-processed excipients? One, improve physico-chemical properties such as better flow properties, increase compressibility, enhance organoleptic properties. So this is very important when you have ODTs, oral disintegrating tablets. So many of the co-processed excipients are there for ODTs, which would give a pleasant mouth feel, which would disintegrate quickly, yet would have a sufficiently good hardness and better dilution potential. Better dilution potential, I mean, that even after diluting the excipient in the formulation, the functionality of the excipient remains intact. Means when you're using an excipient for having good compactability, which would give you hard tablets, even if you add other ingredients, that property will not alter. That means you have a better dilution potential. Secondly, advantages adds functionality to excipients. It reduces the number of excipients in the formulation, helps to reduce the development timelines. When you have less number of excipients, you tend to take less number of batches and you have an optimal formula which is developed, helps to reduce the development times, overall helps to save the cost of the manufacture. Limitations: you have fixed excipient ratio when you are using a coprous excipient. So I use MCC lactose, say at 30 to 30-70 ratio. I add a disintegrant to it, say it's a 30-60-10. I don't change the ratio for that particular coprous excipient. So what if I want more disintegration or faster disintegration? I would need to add some other excipient anyways. So a fixed excipient ratio is one of the major limitation to a coprous excipient, which kind of hampers everyone to change from the existing excipient to coprous excipient. And majority of the coprous excipient lack official status, so they are not listed in the pharmacopoeia. That would again have some reluctance in the use by the formulators. Having said that, for typical applications, you would always go for, or you would always prefer coprous excipient. How do you develop a coprous excipient? Well, you have to identify the group of excipients to be co-processed by studying their functionality requirements. So what do you want? Why are you coming up with a coprous excipient? That is what you want to keep in your mind. Second is selecting the proper proportions of the various excipient. I have a diluent, I have a brittle excipient, and a plastic excipient. Say for example, HCC is plastic in nature, lactose is brittle in nature. This is how your excipient reacts to shear stress. So if you're mixing the excipients, in what proportion they should be mixed, what you need to add to it, do you need a binder to be added, do you need a disintegrant to be added, is what you need to think about when you're developing a coprous excipient. Selecting the correct material characteristic of the excipient. What is the particle size of the initial excipient that you would go for, is what you would like to know. Lastly, selecting a suitable process. How will you co-process them? What are the ways by which you will co-process them? And finally, optimizing the process, because how you optimize the process would basically you get the end product characteristic that would be dependent on. Methods for co-processing the excipients. Well, you have different excipients, excipients being manufactured with respect to by different methods. So you have spray drying, you have granulation by different ways, fluid bed granulation, RMG granulation, you have roller compaction, you have hot melt extrusion, roller drying, precipitation, milling, all these different methods being adopted for manufacturing coprous excipients. Out of these, what you see on this right over here, majority are prepared by spray drying. So a very brief in the methods itself. I will not be going into details of the method because of the time constraints, but when you have spray drying, typically you dissolve or disperse the excipients in a medium, and then you atomize it in the drying chamber. You have a drying gas passing through it, which would ultimately lead to formation of spherical particles. The product is suited for direct compression, so you get excipients. This is your cyclone separator by the way of which you could get the desired particle size of the excipients. The advantages are you have precise control over the parameters. You change the parameters and you can change the properties of the coprous excipient. It's a very much scalable process and one of the widely used methods. These are a few of the examples of the products which are manufactured by spray drying method. So you have a Ludipes from BASF, which are which is lactose and polyvinyl pyrrolidone. You have Starlac 100, which is lactose maize starch. You have Prosol, one of the important excipients which is also pharmacopoeia. Prosol SMCC from JRS, which is MCC plus silicon dioxide. Polytol Flash from Rocket, which is mannitol and maize starch. And you have a list of different. These are only the representative list of some of the excipients which are co-processed by spray drying method. Then you have granulation method, which would be either fluid bed process granulation or wet granulation. Fluid bed process granulation would involve spraying a solution of one of the excipient onto the fluid bed of another excipient and then drying it and obtaining a granulated product, granulated co-processed excipient. In wet granulation process, you have wet mass of the blend of excipients being prepared by with the help of a granulated fluid, and wet sizing it and drying it to have the granules of the co-processed excipient. Advantage of fluid bed process would be it is free flowing and the co-processed excipient is free flowing and exhibits a good compactability, so you get hard tablets out of it. Wet granulation process is a cost-effective process and you have got fewer optimization parameters. The roller compaction process is when you have a blend of 2 or more excipients being compacted by passing it through 2 rollers. Here there is no liquid being used, so there's no drying step. They're suitable for heat labile excipients. Few excipients which are manufactured by granulation method includes Lodi Flash from BASF, which is mannitol, PVP, and cross-povidone. Tabletose by Meagle, wherein you have lactose, which is granulated. Melt extrusion. Hot melt extrusion is the process of pumping a raw material at elevated temperature and pressure through a heated barrel to obtain a product of uniform shape and density. So you have a mix of excipients which you need to co-process. You pass it through this barrel which is heated. All the excipients melt, and together the molten mass is forced to come out of a die, and you get extrudes which are then sized properly to get the desired particle size of the co-processed excipient. The advantage includes no solvent requirement, less number of steps, cost effective, and it is very much amenable to scale up. The co-processed excipient PharmaBurst, which is a mixture of mannitol and sorbitol by the company SPI, is manufactured by this hot melt extrusion method. Co-precipitation, any process which induces crystallization, is basically your co-precipitation method. So if you have 2 or more excipient, you change the pH of the medium, you spray dry it, you freeze dry it, or changing the solvent of the medium can cause precipitation of the excipient. So when both the excipient precipitate out, you can actually take advantage of the rate of precipitation of these excipients, and you can have excipients being precipitated out together. So that's your co-precipitation method for preparing the excipient. Products which are manufactured by co-precipitation method is Sugar Tab by JRS, where you have sucrose and invert sugar being combined as a single excipient. OmeaPharm 500 OG from Omea, wherein you have calcium carbonate and calcium phosphate combined together as a co-processed excipient. One more example which I would like to explain over here, one example of co-processed excipient, that is OmeaPharm 500 OG. Now this is a co-processed excipient which is comprising of calcium carbonate and tribasic calcium phosphate in a ratio of 40:60. So what you see over here is natural calcium carbonate. And when you are co-processing calcium carbonate along with tribasic calcium phosphate by a co-precipitation method following a specific precipitation technique using a specific solvent, you change the entire morphology of calcium of the co-processed excipient. So this product which is obtained is called as functionalized calcium carbonate. Now this is a novel co-processed excipient, and the company Omia actually received an award in one of the CPHIs for the best innovation in the excipient category for bringing out this innovative excipient. Few features of functionalized calcium carbonate is the product is having a very high porosity. So the interparticulate pores would range somewhere in the micron range from 1 to 10 microns. The intraparticle pores go even further down to less than 1 micron. So you have very fine, tiny pores which are there in the nanometer range. Because of its porous nature, you have a higher surface area. The structure is lamellar in nature. You have a brittle plastic kind of a behavior. This is how again the material reacts to shear stress. It is totally mineral composition. You have calcium carbonate and phosphate being mixed together, and the individual components appear in the monograph. But as always with most of the co-processed excipient, Omniapharm 500 OG itself is not pharmacopoeial. If you look at certain parameters, surface area is very high, close to 30 to 60 meters square per gram. Loose bulk density is low, so it is porous in nature, having loose bulk density. It has got good oil absorption capacity as well. So what are its advantages? The lamellar structure. This is the lamellar structure which provides a good particle interlocking, which results in a higher mechanical binding and promotes a high compactability of in the tablet. So you get a very hard tablet, but because it is only physical binding, you have a faster disintegration as well. Secondly, lower ejection force are required during tableting, which means to get the tablet out from the tablet press, the force of ejection which is required is very less, which leads to increased production speed. So you can get tablets at a higher speeds without capping issues, decrease in the equipment variability, and the porous nature also leads to high absorption capacity for oily drugs, for proteins, for your herbal extracts. So the key applications of this excipient is it acts as a binder disintegrant in orally disintegrating formulation because it gives you sufficiently hard tablets and you have a mechanical binding to it, and you have a good disintegration as well. It can also be used in direct dry granulation as well as direct compression processes. Being porous in nature, this excipient can act as a carrier for liquid drugs, for herbal extracts, as well as for proteins, which can be absorbed onto the Omniapharm. Because it is having low bulk density, it is used as a filler in gastroretentive system. There are quite a number of patents on the use of this excipient in gastroretentive systems. And there are also few publications where you can improve the dissolution of poorly soluble APIs by making use of this excipient as a carrier excipient. So in conclusion, there is an increasing demand for new pharmaceutical excipients because there are issues with respect to manufacturing of the excipient, because there are shortcomings in the excipients which are provided for novel drug delivery systems, because there are unmet patient needs which needs to be addressed. So there's always a growing demand for new excipients. Having said that, there are new opportunities as well for many new players to enter into excipient business. So there is a lot of room, there's a lot of scope for innovation. And as I said earlier, coming out with a completely new chemical entity, you see that there is a lot of restriction in getting a new chemical entity Having said that, you have to keep this in mind when you want to have a very different application, when you need to have a totally new application, you need to have a new excipient. So new excipients are required. The only problem is they are difficult to get into market. So one of the quicker means to address common issues is to get co-processed excipients. So they're the excipients of choice to address the unmet needs of manufacturing and patient compliance. Research on the excipients is required to tailor their use to specific applications. So I want a material which will give me good flow properties. So the research is to how can I improve the flow properties of the excipient. Basically, what you are doing in co-processing excipient in all the methods which I just mentioned over here is you're changing the physical form of the excipient. You're changing the particle shape, you're changing the particle size of the excipient. So and you should know how these final properties, the characteristic, would imply to your manufacturing techniques. So what changes should I do in the physical properties which can give me a good flow property? What changes can I do? How can I get a co-processed excipient which would give me hard tablets but which would disintegrate very quickly? So that is what is the area of research on the excipient is going ahead with. There are many universities which are involved in the development of co-processed excipients. If you scan through the number of publications, number of patents, you do find many researchers which are involved in getting modifying an existing excipient, getting a co-processed excipient, mainly addressing a particular need, and addressing to a particular application of its use. My advice to students would be, know your excipients, know the correct grade of the excipient, and know your excipient source. Quickly, before I end this presentation, I would like to introduce my company. So Arihant Inochem is one of the leading distributors of specialty ingredients, excipients, niche excipients which cater to the pharma, personal care, and food industry in India and the other neighboring countries. We were established in 1989, so almost more than 30 years we are there in the market, and over these years we have partnered with a number of excipient manufacturers around the world. We have a dedicated technical team which would provide prompt service and technical support to the pharma industry. We have a small application lab which is situated in Goregaon, which is basically dedicated for development of products for personal care applications. So basically you have your hair care products or your topical cream, your sunscreens. So we have a lot of application work going over there. And we do support a lot of academia in terms of providing excipient for research activities. And we also are involved in collaborating with different academic institutes for exploring newer application of the excipients for the use of excipients in novel drug delivery systems. So we do encourage these activities. These are a few of our partners. They are all over the world. So we have Shin-Etsu, which is basically known for their cellulose derivatives. You have HPMC, you have HPMC acetate succinate, you have HPMC phthalate from Shin-Etsu, Japanese company. Lubrizol is very well known for Carbapol. Asahi Kasei for its microcrystalline cellulose. A whole range of lipid-based excipients from Sterneri Dubois. Omnia is a French company. You have the Omnia Farm. Young Bunzler is again a European company. You have Xanthan Gum. Pharmatrans is a Swiss-based company, and you have a lot of starter pellets. You have the pellets for which are there for coatings or multi-particulate systems. These are used. Dicel, again, one of the recent collaborations. We have two very good excipients from Dicel, which are Granfiller and Hysorad. They are co-processed excipients for ODTs. So you have So you have a filler, binder, and a super disintegrants being co-processed together, and it's a very good excipient for ODT formulations. And we have got many more such collaborations with different excipient manufacturers. Our product basket includes excipients for oral products, for direct compression, improving compression parameters, hot melt extrusion, ODT, soft gels, biodissol systems, site-specific delivery, microemulsion, solubility enhancers, topicals, your bases, thickening agents, emulsifying agents, and solubilizers. For respiratory systems, you have canisters, we have actuators and valves, and also we provide some analytical support for certain studies. We have also few excipients which are for biopharmaceuticals. Mainly, you have the yeast extracts for optimizing the media in the upstream process. So that's all from my end. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's my contact number and my email address. So if you need any excipient, if you have any queries, you can just drop in an email to me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samir sir, for enlightening us with the newer aspects of modified excipients. Sir has briefed us about the need for the modified excipients, their development method, their characterization, along with the examples. So it was indeed an informative session, sir. Once again, thank you very much for sharing your expertise and valuable time with us. We have shared the feedback link in the chat box. I request all the participants to fill the feedback form, and e-certificates will be provided only to those who will be submitting the feedback form. Now the session is open for the questions or queries from the participants. Any queries, any doubts?
Yes, ma'am, I'm having one small question.
Yes, sir, you can ask.
Samir sir, first of all, congratulations for giving so much huge and high information to us regarding excipients. My small question is there. I am actually from a natural product background. After my completion of PhD, what I thought that I should go towards the production site, but it was not possible. In those days after just completion of my PhD, I extracted out a lot of starch from potato and went to a company regarding the purchase from their side. So they told that this potato starch is not suitable for the company, but you can check for it from other side. Just like I'm from Aurangabad, I went to Ajanta Pharma Limited. My question is that basically the person said that this starch from potato is not suitable as a binding agent, and he said me in those days it is little bit modification can be done. So being the today's topic, just before the start of your lecture, I got this question that 15 years or 20 years back I was there, and so I should ask this question: what type of modification can be done in this potato starch so that that can be used by the companies as a binding agent?
Thank you very much for this question. Now, actually, as rightly said, the more acceptable form of starch is from maize source, maize or cornstarch that we would normally
Yes, sir.
call it.
Yes,
as.
sir.
So that is having very good binding properties. So again, when you say what kind of modifications which can be done, one is what you can try doing is one of the processes which is done in case of starch is called as gelatinization. So you get a pre-gelatinized starch. You have that is actually an exhaustive process. So you have got different ways of getting these pre-gelatinized starch. You have partially pre-gelatinized starch. You have completely fully pre-gelatinized starch. So these are the different modifications which are done on starch. One. Second is to improve the binding properties, then you can actually co-process it with different excipients. Now, how to select those is a detailed study.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
But these are the two different ways which I can see as how we can go about with modifying the properties of the starch.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Thank you, Samir sir. It was really very informative session. I have one or two questions for you. The first one is one of your job responsibilities. It's liaising with CRO or academia for conducting application studies for excipients. What actually it is done when it is liaising with academia and with respect to application studies? So can you just throw light on this?
Oh, well, actually, we actually are involved in conducting out certain application studies for our excipients, finding out newer applications. And one of the points which I had mentioned was there are few excipients which are used for a completely different purpose. So we would like to collaborate with institutes who would be interested in carrying out these such studies. Okay, there are few. One example which I can quote it right away is there are entry coating polymers. So you have your Eudragets, you have your acetate succinate, you have your HPMC phthalates. They have been conventionally used as entry coating polymers, but nowadays they have found their utility in solid dispersions, in preparing amorphous solid dispersions, and they are used as stabilizer to prevent the recrystallization of the API during the amorphization process or during the shelf life. So this basically the polymer is both, all the polymers are hydrophilic in nature or amphiphilic in nature rather. So you would have this particular nature, but the point of repurposing is very much important. So we would actually like to look into such different examples, such different applications wherein you can make use of an existing excipient and come out with a different or a related application. So that is what when I say about liaising with CROs or with academic institute to explore newer applications for the existing excipients.
Okay, sir. So my second doubt is you are into industry, you were a part of academia. How will you encourage students to know about new excipients unless and until they come across through their studies or through some or the other way, through their guides, the research work? Otherwise, they about which are the different excipient companies. There are so many. So how would you encourage the students to understand the different and the newer excipients that are existing or that are being invented?
A good question. One point which I would like to mention over here is that we have handbook of excipients. That's a very useful resource to know about excipients. You have a lot of excipients mentioned in the handbook of excipients, and there's a one section in the handbook for each excipient. You also have a different brand names. So it also helps the students to understand about the different brands of the same excipient. So later on, you can actually search on the internet and find out about the company, which products it has. But the book actually gives a very good starting point to venture into newer excipients which the students have not utilized, but they are very much important for them to know before they can step into industry. So that is what I feel. You try encouraging students to refer to handbook of excipients.
Thank you so much, sir. Yeah, over to Kanishka, madam.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other doubt, any queries from the participants?
Yes, ma'am. Can I ask?
Yes, Priyanka.
Sir, I have one doubt, like how to differentiate like grades of excipient. Like you said, first to go for excipient grade to know. Like one is depend on viscosity grade or one is depend on their molecular weight. So how we identify difference between them, like which are the excipient one, which are the viscosity grade and molecular weight grade, difference
Okay.
between them.
Okay. Again, a good question. How to identify this? Now, what happens is, whenever you select an excipient, you do get in touch with the manufacturer or the distributor, the source from where you have got the excipient. You always have the certificate of analysis and some literature of the excipient which comes along with the excipient. Okay, so that acts as a starting point to know what are the properties of the excipient. Get in touch with the resource person, be it the excipient manufacturing company or the distribution company which from which where you have got the excipient, and they will provide you all the necessary information. Thirdly, you can actually find out the information of the excipient from the website of the manufacturer. There are a lot of details which are actually given on the website which you can refer to and find out. Say for example, if I want to know what's the difference between Carbopol 971 and 974p. Okay, I can actually go on to Lubrizol website and you can get all the different information about the different polymer grades. What's the difference between 971 and 974? Again, the major difference is in the viscosity. 974 is much more viscous as compared to 971. So you have the viscosity of the polymer, both the polymers mentioned over there. Similar is the case with, say, any polymer. If you're working on NDDS, you have got, say for example, you're working on biodegradable polymers, PLGA. You have got a whole range of different PLGAs. So which are differing, say 50-50 years, 75-25. Even in these, which are commonly used, there are others as well. Even in these two, you have got different viscosity grades. So how to know about this? And if you just look at the brand name, it would be something like, say, Resomer 752, 752H. What do you mean by this? So if you go to the manufacturer website, okay, Resomer is from which company is from Evonik. So you can go to Evonik website. You can find out what does this Resomer 752H mean. Okay, you can go to Lubrizol website. You can find out what does this 974p mean. How it is different. So you can either get in touch with the resource person if you have their contact, or you can visit the website of the manufacturer, wherein you can come to know all the details. And thirdly, you do get a lot of literature material from these manufacturers as well. So if you have them, you can use it for ready reference.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions, any queries from the participants? Okay. Once again, thank you, sir, for solving the queries. Now I request all the participants to switch on the camera for the photograph. Switch on your camera for the photograph. Thank you. Once again, a gentle reminder for the feedback form. Do fill the feedback form. Now, before we disperse, I would like to propose the vote of thanks. I would like to thank Dr. Samir Padya for taking out time from his busy schedule and enlightening us with today's webinar, that is newer aspects, modified excipients, adding functionality to the excipients. I would like to thank our management for constant support, who constantly support us in every event. I would like to thank our principal ma'am for constantly supporting and encouraging us. I would like to thank our HOD for her constant motivation. I would also like to thank all my colleagues, teaching and non-teaching staff and IT department for the smooth conduct of this webinar. Lastly, the most important, I would like to thank all the wonderful audience for making this webinar a successful event. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.